Hello, good morning students of class 12 commerce. Welcome to Pandya sir's virtual class on macroeconomics, and today we are going to discuss the last part of our current chapter, that is excess and deficient demand. In our last video we discussed about what is the situation of excess demand, how diagrammatically it is represented, and what is the situation of deficient demand and its diagrammatic representation. Also we discussed in elaboration what are their causes and how they impact the economy. So we can conclude after so much discussion that neither excess demand nor deficient demand is a desirable condition for a developing or developed for any economy. We should always aim at operating at equilibrium level. No excess demand, no deficient demand, which is really tough. And how the mechanism works, how the central bank of a country or the management or the planners or the government, how they manage to stabilize the economy. To stabilize means to bring the economy to perfect equilibrium. So, government has two different types of policy at its disposal in order to regulate the economy, to bring the economy into full employment equilibrium, and for that the headings are fiscal or budgetary policy and monetary policy. First of all, we need to understand the meaning of fiscal and monetary policy. What is fiscal policy? Fiscal or budgetary policy is related to all the expenditure and revenue or income of government in one academic year. Sorry, in one economic year. So, government's expenditure and revenue, anything related to these two concepts come under the fiscal or budgetary policy. On the other hand, monetary policy refers to the control of money supply in the money market of an economy. How much money would be there in the money market, it is controlled by the government or the Reserve Bank of India by implementing different policies, and all those things would come under monetary policy of a government. So, one by one we will discuss. First, we come to fiscal or budgetary policy. And then, what are the instruments of budgetary policy that the government uses to control excess and deficient demand? So, first of all, come to taxes. When it comes to tax, it can be studied under two headings. From rich people, government take away some of their earnings, and to poor people, government gives some purchasing power in the name of subsidies. So when we are studying about taxes, we must study about subsidy and tax, both. So, how government can use the concept of tax to control excess demand and deficient demand. So, before going ahead, let me make it quite clear that just use a little bit of your wit and try to understand. We are not going to discuss everything two times, because excess demand is just opposite concept of deficient demand. So, what government is doing to control excess demand, just the opposite would government do to control deficient demand. Hence, no need to memorize everything for excess and deficient demand. If you can recall, if you can memorize one of them, that is either excess or deficient demand, just the opposite concept you can write for the other one. So, come to taxes. We know that excess demand is a condition in which people have more purchasing power than what is required. So anyhow, government need to reduce the purchasing power of the people in order to control excess demand. For that, what government would do? Government would change its policy on taxation, and government would impose more tax or new taxes, so that the purchasing power of people would reduce. And at the same time, government would reduce the amount of subsidies that government is giving to the poor people, so that the purchasing power of poor people will also reduce, so that the aggregate demand would reduce, and again the full employment equilibrium will be restored in the economy. So this is about, in order to control excess demand, the government would increase taxes, government would impose new taxes, and government would reduce the volume of subsidy. This is to control excess demand. So naturally, in order to control deficient demand, government would reduce taxes, withdraw some taxes, and increase the volume of subsidy. This is in order to control deficient demand. So this is all about taxes, how government can use the concept of tax to control destabilization of the economy. We can use this one phrase, one word, destabilization, that refers to both excess demand and deficient demand. Next, public debt or borrowing. Government takes loan from people, from households. That is called public debt or borrowing by the government. So, if we have more purchasing power, then what government would do? Government would start selling securities and bonds, so that people would buy them, and when people buy securities, that is the liabilities for the government of India, because after the maturation period, government has to pay it back. That's why government would sell securities, people would buy securities, and their purchasing power would reduce, and excess demand would fall, and come again the equilibrium would be restored. And on the other hand, in order to control deficient demand, government would purchase security, so that the money would go back to people, their purchasing power would increase, and deficient demand would be again solved. This is all about public debt or borrowing. And the third point is deficit financing. This is a technical term, and you need to understand the meaning of deficit financing. Sometimes government, in order to meet its monetary requirement, that is in order to solve its debt, government restore to deficit financing. Deficit financing is nothing but printing more currency notes, so that more currency, more money comes to the money market, and naturally people's purchasing power rises. Of course, it has some negative impact also, because production not increasing, but more money is coming into the money market, and it results in inflation. So what the government would do in order to control excess demand? Government would reduce deficit financing or printing of more notes, and in order to control deficient demand, government would increase deficit financing. That is, government would start printing more currency notes, so that more money would come to money market, people's purchasing power would increase, and aggregate demand would increase, and as a result, deficit demand would be solved. So this is all about the various fiscal policies related to government's earning. Now we are going to discuss about fiscal policy or budgetary policy related to government's expenditure, because fiscal or budgetary means both government's earning and government's expenditure. So as far as government's expenditure is concerned, what government can do to solve the problem of excess and deficient demand? First, reducing expenditure on non-developmental and unproductive work. need to understand in detail about what is non-developmental and what is unproductive work. Giving subsidies. It improves the volume of welfare, not a development. So giving more subsidy is a non-developmental work or non-developmental expenditure. Unproductive work means, again, means any type of expenditure that don't add to the volume of production. So such expenditure are called unproductive expenditure. So in order to solve the problem of excess demand, government should reduce non-developmental and unproductive work so that people's purchasing power would fall. And in order to solve deficient demand, government should increase non-developmental and unproductive expenditure so that people's purchasing power would increase. So whenever you are writing your answers, just in points you can write the thing that government is doing. For example, first point, non-developmental and unproductive expenditure is reduced. The second point, people's purchasing power rises. The third point, aggregate demand rises. Fourth point, the problem of deficient demand is cured or solved. In this way, point wise, you need to write the answers. Now, coming to monetary policy, that means policy related to the supply of money in the money market, what government can do. It can be studied under two headings, that is quantitative measures and qualitative measures. Quantitative measures, in these instruments, government is planning to reduce or to increase the money supply in the money market. First, coming to bank rate. Need to understand, we have already discussed in the chapter of banking, what is bank rate? Bank rate is the rate at which the central bank gives a long-term loan to the commercial banks in order to run their business. So, bank rate, and then what government would do? Government would increase bank rate to tackle the problem of excess demand. So, how it is going to? What are the chain of effects when government rises bank rate? Government raises bank rate. So now commercial banks would get a loan at a higher rate. So obviously, at what interest rate they are going to give loan to household or a businessman, that would also rise. So when interest rate rises, people would become discouraged to take loan. So the volume of investment would fall, and in this way the aggregate demand would fall and the problem of excess demand would be solved. So for excess demand, government would increase bank rate. For deficient demand, government would reduce the bank rate. Then repo rate and reverse repo rate. See, there is a difference between bank rate and repo and reverse repo rate. This is a little bit technical in nature, hence you need to clearly understand the difference. Bank rate is the rate at which commercial bank can take a loan, that is long-term loan, to run its business. But what happens during their operation or day-to-day activities, commercial banks at times need short-term loans to meet their requirement, and at times they have a surplus amount that they cannot lend. So what they would do? The commercial bank can get short-term loan from central bank, and at what rate central bank gives short-term loan to commercial banks to meet their requirement is called repo rate. And when commercial bank make deposits with central bank for short term, then what rate of interest the central bank gives to commercial bank is called reverse repo rate. And how it is going to affect the economy when it is increased or decreased? First come to repo rate. If repo rate is increased, then obviously the commercial banks would reduce their loan requirement. Hence, the investment would fall, and there the excess demand would fall. Hence, repo rate and reverse repo rate, both the government need to increase in order to tackle the problem of excess demand, and both repo and reverse repo rate should be reduced in order to tackle the problem of deficient demand. Then next comes open market operation. What is open market operation? It is an instrument by which what government does, government sells or purchases securities and bonds in the open market. So what they would do open market operation, if government sells securities, then people's purchasing power would reduce and excess demand would be solved. Hence, in order to tackle excess demand, problem of excess demand, the government should sell securities, and in order to tackle the problem of deficient demand, government should purchase securities so that the money would go to people and their purchasing power would rise, and as a result aggregate demand would rise and the problem of deficient demand would be solved. Then the last point is changing LRR. LRR stands for legal reserve ratio, and legal reserve ratio is the sum of CRR, that is cash reserve ratio, and SLR, that is statutory liquidity ratio. So we need to understand what is cash reserve ratio and what is statutory liquidity ratio. So the central bank decides that commercial bank accepts deposit, and what the commercial bank does with that deposit, again the deposit is advanced as loans to people or to producers. So what happens, the central banks makes it mandatory for the commercial banks to maintain both CRR and SLR. So what is CRR? That suppose the government suppose the commercial bank got 100 rupees of deposit, that is primary deposit, and the commercial bank cannot advance all the 100 rupees as loan to people, because the central bank makes it a rule that the commercial bank need to maintain CRR and SLR. CRR cash reserve ratio, that a portion of the primary deposit the commercial bank need to deposit with the central bank, and a portion of the primary deposit the commercial bank needs to maintain with itself as cash. So CRR and SLR, when both are added, they become LRR or legal reserve ratio. Legal means by law the commercial bank need to maintain these two. So in our example, suppose the primary deposit the commercial bank got 100 rupees deposit, and the central bank has issued a notice that the commercial bank need to maintain 10% CRR and 10% SLR. Hence, out of 100 rupees, 10 rupees the commercial bank would have to deposit with the central bank, and 10 rupees the commercial bank need to keep in cash with itself. Hence 10 and 10 20 reduced, remaining 80. So out of 100 rupees deposit, the commercial bank can provide as a loan only 80 rupees, not the entire 100 rupees. So that is CRR and SLR. So what happens when CRR and SLR is increased? The amount that the commercial bank can give as a loan is reduced. Hence, investment would fall. So, in order to tackle the problem of excess demand, the government need to increase CRR and SLR, and in order to tackle the problem of deficient demand, the government need to reduce CRR and SLR so that the problem of excess and deficient demand can be tackled. Now come to qualitative control. These all are quantitative control, and in qualitative control the first point is imposing margin requirement. Again, it is a technical term. You need to understand what is margin requirement. So see, whenever commercial bank gets a loan from central bank, it is against a security. Of course, when we apply for a loan, then we have to provide some security to the commercial bank as well. So what happens? The difference between the value of security and the actual loan provided is called margin requirement. We can explain it, we can discuss it with the help of an example. Suppose the government has fixed 80% is a 20% as a margin requirement, 20% margin requirement. It is always fixed by the central bank. So if the government fixes margin requirement 20%, then in order to get if we provide a security, the value of the security is 100 rupees, then 100 minus 20, that is the commercial bank would give only 80 rupees of loan to us. And what happens when margin requirement is increased? Suppose the margin requirement is made 30%. Then out of 100 rupees worth of security, we will be able to get a loan of 100 minus 30, so only 70 rupees loan we can get. So of course, margin requirement is increased. When it is increased, people are discouraged to take loan and excess demand is solved. And when margin requirement is reduced, people are encouraged to take loan and deficient demand is solved. Next, imposing margin requirement, then moral suasion and direct action. Moral suasion, it is request by central bank to the commercial banks to follow the policies framed by the central bank. Sometimes by being guided by profit motive, the central bank is the commercial banks don't follow the policies, the guidelines of the central bank. So in such a case, what the central bank can do? First, the central bank can inform by giving notice, that is called moral suasion, and still if the commercial bank doesn't follow the rules and policy or guidelines, then it is time of direct action. That is cancelling of license or putting restriction on expansion of branches. So all these are direct action, and the central bank does it by giving moral suasion and direct action. Then it is quite different. Selective credit control is channelizing volume of credit to a particularly pre-planned sector. Let me give one example. Suppose the government is willing to give some special attention to agricultural sector. Then in under selective credit control, what the government would do, that the government would, the commercial banks, with the information of the government, the commercial bank would reduce the interest rate for agricultural sector. That means if the natural interest rate is 10% for other purpose, then for agricultural purpose we will get loan at 6 or 5%. So obviously that particular sector will be encouraged to take loan, and that particular sector would develop. So this is what is the meaning of selective credit control. So this is all the fiscal and monetary policies and its instrument, different instruments, and how central bank and the planners and the government of India or a government of any country uses all these instruments of fiscal and monetary policy to stabilize the economy, means to tackle the problem of excess or deficient demand. So this is all about today, and your excess demand chapter is completed. So next we will shift to development economics. So thank you and have a nice day.